Hi everyone. So today we are actually discussing about one important topic. Most of us from the L&D field or any field, we interact with one another, including our, clients, subordinates, stakeholders. So how we need to actually interact, because there are some things which are in our control which we can actually work on. So today this session is actually talking about in socially how we are actually need to interact with one another. Before that, there are certain things which we can actually observe in people, and based on that we can actually plan our conversation with them. So this session will be, most of them it will be an interactive session, because it's this is very important that we cannot have a session wherein I go on talking for 30 minutes and then you ask question, because as it's related to interaction, so let's keep it interactive. So I'm just sharing my screen. Let me know once you're able to see it. Are you guys able to see it now? Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So it's called as social styles. So does anyone have any idea, like what is a social style is all about? Anyone can chip in. What do you think? You think about when we talk about there are two words here. One is called as styles and one is social, right? So what do you think that the social style is all about? Anyone? You can think whatever you feel like. Okay, you put it on the chat box or something. Okay, you can speak out, no issues. You don't need to be going on mute. You can just unmute yourself and you can speak.
Yeah, is it about people behavior in social situations?
Yeah, it's one way. It's the same. It's about the people behavior in social situations. However, there are certain way we interact with one another, and everyone has a dominant style of interacting with other people. So here we are actually trying to understand how a person is dominant in one particular way of interaction, and how we can actually change our hats to suit it. Because if you understand, there are many people in your work atmosphere, or your in your family also, you get gel along very well. With some people you might not. So here we are just trying to understand that out. So give me a minute, I'm just okay. Social styles, majorly what it does, it actually strengthens the relationship between one another. It improves our communication. It helps us to predict a behavior, a general behavior in people. It talks about, majorly it gives us an indication about, what they value the most, so that, how we can actually try to work with them, so that we can actually have a very good relationship, and how we can actually help them to make decisions, or how they take decisions where we can help them out. And it actually helps on mainly getting on the opportunities, because as we are into L&D, we interact with lot many people for our business purposes, majorly conducting the trainings also. When we actually conduct the trainings, when we interact with the participants, how we can actually understand their social styles, and plan our sessions and change the way we interact accordingly. So it actually works with the two important behaviors. For example, in terms of what is the assertiveness, and what's their responsiveness. Just give me a minute. My just system is just give me an issue. Just give me a minute. Apologies, my system was just going on. There was some power issue, so I just had to reconnect it. So majorly in social styles, when we organize it, right, we actually talk with two important areas. One is how they respond, what is their way of respond to us, and what is their assertiveness in terms of listening what we speak. Don't you think that these two are very important factors when we are actually interacting with other people? If we know that how they are tend to respond, based on that we can actually communicate, we can actually strategize our communication also. Okay, so assertive behaviors, if we talk, there are two types of assertive behaviors. One is a non verbal way, the second one is going to be a non-verbal way. And if you talk about verbal behaviors, it's majorly on their pace of speech, the way they speak, the way they quantify, and the way they are actually the volume of their speech also, whether they speak long or whether they speak to the point, it depends on that. In verbal behaviors, there are two ways of communication. Some people ask for this information, some people tell the information, they give the information. In terms of non-verbal behaviors also, there are two different ways. One is the way they are actually having their body postures. I believe as a trainers, you understand that, and if their body posture is not conducive, so you will lose interest on even conducting the training program also. And using of their hands, the way they are actually interacting with, are they actually highly in terms of energy, or are their energy level is pretty low or something. Let me know when you can see my screen, right? So when we talk about verbal behaviors, and if we talk about their responsiveness, in the behaviors, if we talk about verbal and non-verbal, if we see as per their assertiveness, there are different ways which we can see it. Either it's on are they either they like to ask, or they like to say, or what is their energy level. Similar way, if we talk about responsive behaviors in terms of their verbal and non-verbal, if we actually categorize it, there are people who are more controlling. There are people who actually use emotions in their voice, they're very emotive. They ask, actually they are more concerned with the task rather than people oriented. Some people are more in terms of open conversation, they would love to talk a lot. Some people actually give they want to have more emotions, they want to speak more. It actually works on both the ways, in verbal and non-verbal. So if we actually the way we categorize it here, if we see, if you see the screen, it's actually on the 4 quadrants, right? One is controls, other one the vertical one which talks about controls and emotions, the right the horizontal one which talks about asks and tells. If you take the center point as low, and if it goes higher on the tells or on the ask side, the same way on the controls and the emotions, you can see 4 different quadrants, right? So if you see, there is one person who's highly in terms of control behavior, or he want to control a lot. That means he might be even asking, or he might be more in terms of telling people. So what kind of a person that the first quadrant would be? So if you see, there are some people in your family or in your working atmosphere. They tell you one thing, that this is the target which you want to do it. I don't care how you do it. I want you to get the work done. Don't you see such people in your life, in your day-to-day activities, right? When you see such people, what do you call them as? They drive the work. So what happens? The way they interact, their communication will be very faster paced. They talk in a very structured way. They interested in results and the speed rather than the quality. And the activities, what they have to do is, they actually talk about what needs to be done tomorrow and complete it. They're not the one who actually wait for things, and they're not the one who love to say, love to listen to no as an answer. So this is one type of people whom you have. Then the second one, if you see the second quadrant, where people are more into telling and they're into emotions. They love to tell the stuff, but they tell it with emotions. So what kind of people are? For example, if you go and ask them for some information, you actually, if you're actually working in a working atmosphere or at office, when you go to an office and if you want to speak to someone, you first ask the subordinate or someone, sir, how's the mood today? So these kind of people you do come across. If the mood is good, you go and ask. If the mood is bad, you save it for some other day. Right? Is that the way we want to actually communicate? So those people are called as expressive, wherein they love to express their emotions. However, their communication is most of the time it's unstructured because they talk each and everything what is in and around. Their actions will be very impulsive. They're more focused on innovations and vision, and their time frames, whatever they talk, they actually talk in the future perspective, not what's happening today or tomorrow. They love to think about things, things are happening, it's very far away or in very futuristic. Then the third one, if you see about it, it's the people who are more in terms of asking and emotions. When you see these people, they love to ask things, and if you talk to them, for example, if you see your family atmosphere, whenever you are actually facing some issues, if you tell them, they'll say that, don't worry, everything will be fine in one day. Don't worry, things will be taken care of. They are emotional, they ask things, but the problem with these guys is they don't decide. They are not the one who's actually decision makers, because they're very low in controlling, or they're very low in telling the things. That's when they love to only listen to it, but unfortunately they are very good listeners, but they're not good decision makers. So they are called as amiable. Why amiable? Because they don't want to take any kind of a risk in life. So the way of communication will be very slow. They are very much people oriented, relationship oriented. They don't want to spoil any relationship because of they take any decisions. They want a harmonious relationship. They want to have a consensus between each and every party, and they actually think about what is present today. They think on the present time frame. Then comes the last one, wherein people they ask things, but they want to have a control also. So what kind of people these guys are? These guys are more in terms of analytic in nature. They are risk adverse. Like they don't want to take any risk. They do speak slow. They are very cautious in terms of taking actions. However, their communication will be more in structured way. They want to see everything in detail, all information which they want to, because before taking any decisions, they want to see all pros and cons, and they want to know what you're doing. Instead of what you're doing, they are more interested in how you are doing, and they actually work on the past things, whatever in the historical stuff. They compare that with the current. So their decisions are based on their historical events which has happened with them professionally or personally. So these are the four different styles which most of the people have. Everyone, we are actually dominant on one or other. So why do we need this? Because when we are actually trying to meet people, if we know what kind of a person what kind of a personality or a social style this person has, so it will be easy for us to communicate, which makes him understand what we are trying to do. So, for example, what is their types of questions? If we see, the first one is the driver, which we are talking about. So the way they communicate, they are more results oriented. That's why their communication always starts with what results you will be delivering. इसका end results क्या है? इसका क्या होगा? और कब होगा? ये तुम बता दो. The second things, which the way they communicate, how are you different from the others? When you are actually going for a pitch for your team, these are the questions you will listen. Third question, the way they communicate is what quick wins you're trying to get. How do you change things quickly? Or what assets or what value additions you bring it? And how much does it save? You need to quantify that out. And they actually ask, have you done this before? Or, where have you done this before? Or the way they talk is they actually want to have a control on what you guys do. And they want to actually have the A team or the top team in the picture. That's how they actually do it. Then if you go to the people, who are actually expressive, the way they communicate is, the way their actions will be like, is that something different you guys are doing? Are we the first? Does that make us look better than someone else? Or they actually try to understand, are you going to listen to what he is talking about? Because the way you discuss with them, if there is a problem X, they actually try to completely, cover up the whole thing. Then they come into the core, because they're more in terms of expressing that out. They're actually kind of a storyboard people. When you ask a question, they actually try to communicate in a whole story rather than getting into the point. That is one. Then the third people who are actually amiables, the way they communicate, it's more in terms of a partnership. So they talk about, okay, how will you partner with us? So do you have any proven tools and methods? Will that actually help the people to improve themselves? Have you done this before? What do you guys both have in common? Are they collaborative? They're actually more working in terms of collaboration rather than, they talk about you being a subordinate or you being at a, you are a vendor to them. Then the fourth one, which is more in terms of analytical. The way they communicate is the way you speak to the banker. When you go to the bank, irrespective of whatever you have, whatever issues you have, or how much finance you need, without the proper documentation, will they give any loan or will they approve any financial help? No, because for them, in God we trust, for everything else we have documentation. So that's how they communicate. So how will you do it? What tools and methods you are going to use? And they start thinking about, is this person trying to sell something? Or because with that person, they actually think about the investment and the benefit right away. They actually want everything in documentation. They'll say that, can you send it to me in an email, whatever you're going to do, because they don't believe in verbal communication. And they want to understand, will you be transparent with them or not? So this is how they're actually going to communicate. Now, there are a couple of things which I want to ask you guys. For example, if you meet anyone who's, you know, driver, then how are you going to communicate with them? Anyone can chip in here. The person you're speaking, if you understand that and if you feel that this person is a driving methodology, the way he interact is more in terms of driver mentality, then how you are going to speak to them? What personality you will be using? Or what social styles you will be using? Anyone can chip in here. Guys, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? So you can unmute yourself and speak. So for example, if a person is a driver mentality who want things to be done at a particular way or at a particular time, so how are you going to do that? How are you going to interact with him? Anyone? Smith, I think we are not able to hear you. No one?
Hello, Mr. Nayak. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Sir. Yes, doctor. Yes, Dr. Sao.
Yeah. In what way this style is different from DISC assessment?
It is similar to disk assessment itself, but
Yeah.
the reason we are actually talking about it is in terms of your business atmospheres, how you guys are actually trying to understand it. Because if you talk about disk assessment, they're actually talking about one particular way itself, right? Here,
Mhm.
as into business, we need to accommodate all different styles also because we can develop those skills so that we can understand how we can, being collaborative and in terms of your business development or in learning and development, this would really help us there that way. It's similar to disk itself. The way
Yeah.
we it's communication, it's actually related to the way they communicate in terms of their social atmosphere, what we can use.
Okay. So this is again another leadership style, or what do you say?
It's a social style which is most of them are used in the leadership communication because when have you heard about power maps?
Which
Because
one?
when we talk about social stakeholder communication, stakeholder management,
Right.
when we actually need to interact with the different type of stakeholders, this is where we actually understand the importance of the stakeholders, the way they have the powers
Yeah.
in terms of making decisions and how we can interact with them for the betterment, for the benefit of both the parties.
All
If we
right.
actually understand that out, then it is easy for you to communicate and get them in one single page and then move ahead.
Right. So what was your question then?
My question is, for example, if the person is actually at the he's having a style of a driver mentality,
Right.
driving, he's actually driving things, he wants things to be done at his own way, or he's actually interested in completing the work on time irrespective of what you guys are doing.
Mm.
So if that person is that kind of a mentality, so when you guys are actually going and meeting him, how you can actually gel with him and interact with him, then what we need to be do, what personality we need to be following or what social style we need to follow.
Okay.
So that is what I was actually trying, because for everyone we need to interacting with the driver mentality, we need
Yeah.
to have a certain way of interaction.
All right.
If a person is an expressive, then the way of interaction would be different.
Yeah.
Because if you see in a disc, it's influential. They say when they say
Right.
influential, it comes
Right.
with bit more of an emotions. So then, how you need to interact with them? It's not only limited to his influence. It actually the way it actually follows is how he is responsive and how he is in terms of his behavior, his assertiveness, because this is
Right.
majorly categorized as per their behaviors rather than their personality.
Right.
It works on the similar lines, but more in terms of their behavior oriented, because if I gel with one person's behavior, it's easy for me to get along and have a fruitful relationship for a longer period.
The driver type of people, they are more dominant.
They are more dominant.
They are more result oriented.
Agreed. So with
Agreed.
them, then what do you need to do? How you need to tackle them out without hurting
Maybe
them much?
you have to be a performer. You have to be a performer.
Now, out of these social styles, how you need to, for example, you're actually meeting one person as a driver who's actually your client. Then
Yeah.
what do you do? you need to be using any of these four styles, then how are you going to actually do it? Because you need to perform, that's one part. But before the performance, can you accept everything what he says? Because there are sometimes he might talk something which cannot be possible also,
That's
right?
correct. That
Then how you need to interact with him?
so you have to be more analytical, and then you have to be more methodical, and you have to be process oriented, so that at least you can convince him, or you can tell that yes, how this can be done, or how this cannot be done, like that.
Agreed. But before that, what you need to do, example, I'll give you the example. The reason I'm talking about is if the person is driving,
Yeah,
driver mentality or a dominant, the first thing he expect is, he doesn't expect, the last thing he expect is no, right?
right,
So
correct.
you cannot start with no with him.
So
Then what you need
amicable,
to, yeah, you need to become
mainly amicable,
amiable first,
amiable.
listen to whatever he speaks, then
Yeah,
understand what you need to speak, and then you get into analytical mode and then give the details, whether it is
right,
possible or not possible. Because without that, if he's a driver mentality and if you have also have a driver mentality, then
right.
it can become the things can go worse.
Correct, correct.
That is what we are actually trying to achieve from here today.
Okay, okay.
So
Thank you.
that is one part. Secondly, if that person is expressive, then what you need to do? With that person being expressive, how are you going to interact with them? Will you be driver? Will you be expressive again? Will you be amiable? Or will you be analytical? So this is what we need to understand, how we need to interact the way between those people. For example, if he's expressive, then also you need to be amiable, because you cannot
Right,
become anything else,
right, correct.
because that person is a storyboard teller. He speaks his emotions. But when you are amiable, then also you need to, once that is done, again you need to be analytical also there. Because with him, he need to vent out his emotions, then he'll be able to ready to listen to you guys. If he's expressive, you can't be driver. If you driver and if he's expressive, there will be another world war happening there. So we need to understand that out. The third one, if the person is amiable, if the person is very people oriented, but however he doesn't take any decisions, then what are you going to do?
In that case, you have to be also amiable, and then you have to be again dominant.
Yes, you need to be dominant in between. You need to be dominant there, because that trait you need to possess more, because he will not say no, because as he is a people oriented person, but he will not take any risk. He is averse to take risks.
Right.
Then the person need to be, we as people who are actually, if we are approaching the other person is amiable, then I need to know that I need to be listening to him, then let me be dominant, let me be taking care of it. The fourth personality, it's called as analytical. If that person is analytical, what you need to be, then how you need to behave with them, how you need to interact with them. Will you be driver? Will you be expressive? Will you be amiable? Or will you be analytical?
Again, you
How?
have to be also analytical. You have to be
Because
analytical. Then again, you have to be again dominant.
because the person who's analytical will not understand any other emotions other than analytical. Because for them, the documentation is the must. For example, if you go to bank and you want to take a loan, irrespective what you're going through, will they give any heed to what you are actually going through, what you're suffering from? What they talk is, if your CIBIL score is so much, only then I'll give you this much funds. If your salary slip is that much, only then this. Or they actually go for all the documentative records, irrespective of what relationship you have. So that makes your relationship work. Similarly, when these guys are actually working, they have different way of their interaction. The way they work with them, how we need to behave with them on a particular day also, very important for us to understand. For example, on their best day, a driver, they can, provide excellent results. They can be very much organized. They can be very much, leadership oriented people. They are very good on a day if they are its best. On their worst day, for example, what's happening now is corona, right? On those kind of a day, what they become more insensitive. They won't be known, more sociable. They will be very much impatient. We might have seen a lot of riots and this, unforeseen things happen because the people who are actually driving it, they don't care what's happening. They don't care what's happening to other people. So how we, on that particular person, we need to actually understand how to interact on their best day and on their worst day. On the other hand, expressive people, on their best day, they will be very much enthusiastic. They are very much charged up to do things. They are very much social people. They are very much innovative, creative, lot of things they actually try to innovate stuff. And they provide humor also because they are very much talkative. They understand people. They actually play with emotions. On their worst day, what they do is they talk too much and they try to dominate meetings a lot. And they talk about the long stories instead of sticking to the point. And they don't listen to what you guys do. They don't answer. Their emotions will flown from their body more than what you think of, more quickly also. They are short tempered, which we say, and they say things and later then they regret also.
Yeah.
Amiable people, on their best day, they provide harmony. They're very conscientious. They settle things very quickly. They're very good in pacifying people, and they provide comfort to the people very quickly. And if their day is not good, on that day you feel like they're very lazy. They don't initiate things which they could do. They don't take decisions because they don't love to take risks. Same, but analytical, you don't see much of an difference with their their way of working because they are transparent. They provide rigor and they actually try to show you if you make a mistake. They'll say this is how you need to do it because they are analytical. But they don't take risks. They don't take decisions. And they don't take pressures much. They'll say that if this is happening only, then I can do this. If this is not, then I cannot. So this is how they actually interact with one another.
This type of people in what situation they are the most proven one, or to which department analytical, to which department they such type of people are more suited.
They're more in terms of finance, whatever related to your numbers.
Yeah.
They are more suited. The analytical people are more suited in terms of decision making, in terms of finance, your corporate law, all those areas, right? They are more suitable. Amiable people, in other way, are more suitable in terms of HR related work. Expressive people are more suitable in terms of taking care of your innovation, research and development because they love to do things differently or they love to do something different. Driving people are more in terms of your decision oriented. Your top bosses, they actually do that because that's how they don't interact with more people. They are more focused on what is the end result.
But
So
when we
this is
talk of
how the
collaborative,
people.
when we talk of collaboration, collaborative thing, then how a autocrat is going to last for the full time?
It can be. The reason I'm talking, I'll give you the example. For example, if you see interaction between, you guys have seen the movie of the Facebook guy, right? Mark Zuckerberg.
No, I have not
Mark
seen.
Zuckerberg's movie, if you watch it, you can actually watch that out. The way he's actually interacting is he's more in terms of result oriented. That's why he even dished his friend when he actually formed that company,
Again, that
because he wanted,
is not
yeah, he wanted to
ethical.
get
When
the
we are
result.
talking of ethical business, that is not ethical.
No, I'm talking about, this is what he was earlier.
Right, right, right.
Okay.
Uh,
So I'm talking about his personality. But when he, now we have actually seen there is a collaboration happened between Reliance Jio and Mark Zuckerberg,
Facebook.
Facebook, right?
Yeah.
The reason, if you see all the articles which has come there, it actually talks about the end results.
Hmm.
It doesn't talk about anything else. So the reason, because the way you can have a collaboration with that particular person is you need to show them the end result. They're not bothered about what you're doing, how you're doing. They are bothered about what's the end result. That's it. So that is how you want, if you want to have a collaboration with them, you have to give them what they understand. If they don't understand that way, then it is not useful, because they will not even listen to you. That's the way their personality is. If the person is more expressive, then their expressions will hold the same way. For example, when we talk about the current situation of Corona, things have happened in China. Now they lifted the stuff and lifted all the prohibitions in Wuhan, because they started everything. The reason they started was their way, their interaction was that way. For example, if you take Trump, they have not put the economical lockdown until it went to worse. The reason, because they were worried about economic situations than the people situations. Had it been the person who's at that particular place, someone else, their interaction would be something different. This is what we are actually trying to understand. The way they have an interaction, the way we need to interact with them would be the way, that way itself.
Okay. Thank you.
If we gel with the way they understand, the relationship can go longer. If that doesn't happen, then the issues start creeping in. I hope I'm able to answer this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nayak. Thank you.
Now, I'm talking about their styles, the client styles I'm talking about. If the person who's actually a driver person, so what they do, and on the horizontal, we actually put the client style, and the vertical, which we put our personality style. Example, if the person is driver and you're also the driver, then what happens? You share the responsibilities. You try to maintain that peer relationship. Like, there is no one who is top, no one who is bottom. I believe you can understand the way, Reliance and Geo relationship taken care. Now it's actually happening on the same way. There is no one who is boss or no one who is subordinate. Both are actually working on the end results. If that person is expressive and you're driving, your personality is more in terms of drivers, then what will happen is the interaction has to be more in terms of general rather than specific. It's less formal relationship you might have to maintain, because expressive person doesn't understand more of a formal approach. They like to have a casual approach. If that person is amiable, then we need, as a driver, if if we are driver mentality, then we have to slow down our pace and try to be more relationship oriented than the result oriented. And if that person is analytical, then we have to slow the pace also, and they need to have a details. They, without any documentation, they don't understand. So then whatever goal has to be put in, that has to be followed up with the details. So, sorry. The next one, if the person is if we are expressive and the other person is driving, then the way we interact becomes more casual. That casualty has to be taken out, and towards need to focus towards goal. Because most of the trainers, when we talk with emotions. Several people are more emotional people, but if the person is having a driving mentality, the interaction first has to move from how we do it to what is the end result. Because we more talk about how we are actually trying to do rather than focusing on the end result. If the other person is into end result and driver mentality, then that has to be done. And if both are expressive, then try to understand, take notes, but never try to move from responding to an argument, because these people are more, they actually tend to become from what is right to who is right. That shift happens very quickly if the person is more in terms of expressive. So from what, if we move to who, it actually gets into the ego rather than doing something right. So then it becomes, your communication gets into argumentative. So that's what we need to understand. If the person is amiable, then the way we need to communicate is we need to become more slow if we are expressive, and trying to communicate more in terms of focusing on relationship rather than trying to tell the stories. If the person is more in terms of analytical, we need to be documentative also, because then our communication has to change accordingly. The problem comes in when we are amiable. Then what happens is it's always becomes an S-boss attitude. If the person is driver, we tend to accept things. Then if we don't do it, we might face issues later. So there the focus has to be shifted from people oriented to goal orientation. If the person is expressive, amiable person has to improve the way he's speaking, his pace, because that person, expressive person, is ready to actually put his point of view rather than understanding what you are actually facing. And he is not more interested in you maintaining the relationship. He is actually trying to get something new out of it. If both are amiable, then it's very much in terms of networking, that I win, you win, I gain, you gain, which is happening more in terms of our L&D community. So that's what people are doing. And amiable and analytical, we need to try to pick up the pace also. There they need more in terms of documentation, wherein the relationship attitude has to, we need to reduce that out and focus more in terms of relationship and details. And if analytical person, if the driver person is talking something, they need to improve the pace and understand it. They need to focus less on details, because that person wants to know more on goals. If that person is expressive, we have to focus little less on the detail, because that person is more detail oriented. Expressive person is getting more into details. Then little more casual approach has to be there, because expressive person doesn't like formal approach. If the amiable person, analytical person, as an analytical, if I meet amiable, then they need to be more casual approach has to be taken. And analytical, both has to be right, because the documentation both will go through the same way. This is what we need to understand. First, we need to understand what kind of a style I am dominant with, and if the other person having a certain style, then how I need to comprehend with that, how I need to pull up some other styles, some portion of it, and how I need to improve my interaction. That will help me to have a better relationship and the better collaborative approach in the future.
Right. In fact, a leader must
Now,
have all the styles, but sometime it happens that yes, one style is more dominant than the other one, and maybe one style is suitable to a particular action, and the other type may not be suitable to that type of action.
agreed,
Yes, he
agreed,
has to choose the style, which style he want to adopt in what situation and in what context. Maybe.
agreed. Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. So that's
Yeah.
why, even though I'm having a particular dominant style for a certain situation, I need to adapt to certain situations and I need to change my way of interaction with people based on
Right.
whom I'm speaking with. So there also, if we try to, that is where, from social styles, we actually even talk about one more area called power maps. I'm talking about power including power plus influence, how that person is placed. If the person is high on power and high on influence, then my interaction will change accordingly.
Okay.
And how his influence is and how his power is also needs to be worked upon and understood. Based on our communication will change. This is the area where we need to understand the person. Once we understand the person, we need to see where he is placed, and based on his placement our interaction should be changed.
Okay.
Our interaction should be, actually working on our interaction should depend on where he is sitting. It's not only the social styles will help me to understand how we need to interact and how much I need to interact. It actually talks about the way his power is limited.
Great.
So this is the backup behaviors what they have. Drivers person, the way they have, they're more behavioristic in terms of autocratic. If they are actually if they are cornered with something, they become more autocratic. They don't want to compete with them. We don't want to compete it. They try to take charge and seek control for everything. They want to have the control atmosphere because they want to tell the people and they want to have the controls. So this is what their behavior is, more in terms of autocratic. With them, what we need to do is we don't want to compete with them. If the person is more expressive, so their atmosphere, their way they think is more in terms of attacking, because they vent out feelings and they become very angry quickly. Then what we need to do is we need to empathize, we need to understand, because they're the one, when they speak something, they want us to accept it, or at least communicate stating that okay, I'm with you, I'm listening to you. And we should not evaluate what they are actually talking about. If you start evaluating, it actually gets into their ego. Amiable people are more in terms of acquisitive, working atmosphere wherein they don't take any decisions, because without commitment they concede stuff. They'll say that let's see, okay, देखेंगे, okay, we'll check with the other people, we'll check with these people. So this is how they are. So for them, it's our responsibility to ask for inputs, ask for help, ask for reaction, ask for ideas. Until unless you don't force them out, they don't work on much things. Analytical people, they try to avoid things more, because that is their backup behavior, because they want to withdraw from the conflict. They don't want to get into the conflict. They say that no, I'm out, I don't want to talk about it. So with them, you need to actually understand what kind of a procedure, or follow up stuff, what kind of a documentation you need to follow up with, because they don't understand anything else apart from the document. So this is how their communication is. Then we need to see how they are placed, because if we do understand where they are, what their behaviors are, then we can think about how I need to tackle with them. I can give you an example of one of my project which I did it in US. So we went to US, and the person was more in terms of expressive behavior person. He becomes very angry, and being in US, he doesn't like Indians much. So we had to get for a project. So we could not understand how we can actually interact with him because he was not trying to understand or open up with us. So one fine day, one weekend, one of my colleague called him up and asked, "What are you doing?" Then he said, "Actually, I'm going for a uh, an automobile, majorly there's an event happening, exhibition. It's for a vintage cars." So this guy also had an interest towards vintage cars. So both got gelled up very well together, and that's how we could get that particular project. So it's how we actually can understand one's mentality and try to understand the issue and get the commitment and get the work done. This is very important in terms of any communication which we have. For example, this we do follow when during our childhood. When we grow up, we forget about it. If you ask any kid, if that kid is failed in an exam, whom will that person go and speak to? किससे बात करेगा घर में? Mummy, daddy, grandpa, grandma? If I did a mistake, or if sorry,
Mostly mother,
why?
because she takes care of the child more than the dad, because dad is always busy in other work, office work.
Okay.
Thing. He is not able to give that much of time.
Okay. Now I have one more question, sir.
Most nearest person is mother.
Okay. In that case, I'll ask one more question.
Yeah, please.
If that kid, the same kid has got very good marks and stood first in the class, whom will he approach, mother or a father?
I don't
That
think
time.
it will make any difference. Again, he has.
No, that time most of the kids go to their fathers.
Okay.
Because if I do good, I get something in return. I get some pride. I get some goodies. I get some gifts.
So you have
And they
some
know that
expectations.
it's my father who can give it. It's my father who gives it. Right?
Right.
So that means I'm talking
And
about,
mother.
yeah,
And
mother
saves
is
me.
actually when I'm in problem. That means I need
Mother
to have
saves
some,
me.
yes, because that person, doesn't give any commitment. That person becomes amiable. Your mother becomes amiable that time. Right? Most of the mothers' mentality is amiable. When they're amiable, what happens is they listen to the kids. So because she's not the one who takes decisions there. So I know I can speak out my mind and get away with the consequences. Right? But if I know that most of the fathers, they're the one who actually run the family. They're the one who decision makers. Right? They are the one who are more dominant. They want the end result. That is when, if my results are good, the kids go to their fathers than their mother. If the results are not good, that time they go to mother because they know that she's the one who's going to listen to me because she's the amiable person. We do that. We have done that in our childhood. Don't you guys agree on that?
Yeah. Correct.
So this is what we actually follow. But however, when we actually try to get into realistic atmosphere, we won't do that. When we are actually getting into our corporate or our workhood, we don't get into it. This is what the behaviors which we actually try to understand. Now, if I'm actually talking about the person, right? If I'm actually mapping the people, we actually need to understand where that person is, how that person is related to one another. For example, if I have a person who's a driving, and he has one person who's amiable, and he's got an influence to influence on the driving person. So let me try to become friendly with that person, then try to use them to motivate or get a support or a reference with the driver person. We do that out to get our work done in a business environment. So this is what we do in a whole. And these behaviors, it's more related to what my responses are and how am I actually trying to understand people. So with this, I'm actually trying to end this out. And if you have any questions, you can ask. Anyone has any questions?
This is really it's a good going, and you have given a lot of insights on how to deal with people and your client and leaders and other thing. Definitely, and there are other things like disk analysis is also, but then you have also told that how it differs from disk and all these things. Okay, but
yeah, this is more related to your personality.
Yeah.
This is more in terms of your behavior.
So how this behaviors are influenced by your how it is being influenced when you are having this type of social behavior, like suppose somebody is autocratic, somebody is amiable, somebody is what is playing behind that? Why somebody is like that? Why
Okay.
some not coming out? So somebody is approaching that lose-lose approach, and why somebody is telling that yes, it is my way or highway. Why this is happening?
Okay. I'll tell you one thing. You guys will be surprised. Everyone has all these four mentalities, all four
Agreed.
sides.
Agreed.
Okay. It actually becomes dominant because certain things which I am exposed to more, so I'm actually developing that particular behavior. Certain things I'm not. I'll give a best example. If a person says I'm a driver mentality, I'm actually dominant, there are several people in the family, they think that they actually try to become more angry, or and the way they say is mujhe gussa aata hai, I get angry, right? But if I say, if that person is working in an office and if his boss yells him, does he voice it back? Does he give it back? No,
It's
not most of the times.
yeah.
The reason because there that person's power comes into the picture. If my power is more in a particular area, my dominant behavior comes out. Another example, if I give it out, most of you guys have kids or have seen kids in your have students in the family, right?
Yeah.
So if your neighbor's kid has failed in an exam and comes to you and say that, uncle, I failed in the exam, what will you say? What will be your response? What will be the response normally?
Yeah, that okay. Don't mind. You will do next time. Work hard and like this. You will advise him to do better and better in the next time.
Right?
Yeah.
What if the same situation happens with the other kid?
The mentality changes. Yeah. Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Reason because it mainly happens because one, I have the control over it. I am the one who's actually deciding factor. I know that. The other one, another way, I am not having the controlling factor.
Very right.
So in one way, I become judgmental. In other way, I am not becoming judgmental. Right? It's
Very right.
more in terms of authority. Who has the authority?
Yeah, correct.
So, so most of the, apart from amiables, right? All others, depending on your social circumstances, who has the authority. Based on that, they actually express their stuff. The one who's amiable will always, will most of the time will be amiable because they're the one who actually accept things. They don't take decisions. Even though if I'm expressive, if I'm sitting in my office, my boss who's actually driver, I'll listen to him whatever he says. I come out of the office and then give any, give bad words or whatever I want to talk about. But will I speak to him in front of him? No. It actually depends on the circumstances that how much power I have to speak or how much authority I have to speak.
Yeah.
So what happens is whenever we are actually
Yeah.
growing in a particular stature, this
Right.
changes. I'm talking about that behavior takes dominant. That becomes behavior becomes dominant. That's it.
Right.
I hope I'm able to answer your question.
I have seen another situation also when a person is in an authority and he tells, but the person who is down below is having a dominant character, and if he is having some he knows some loopholes of his boss, that fellow becomes dominant.
Yeah, it can be. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. If I
Even
know
if
that
that
my
authority
boss,
is there with the other man, it happens sometimes.
yeah, if the authority person is becoming amiable,
Right.
if the authority person is amiable,
Yeah.
then the person whom he is listening to is, if he is actually becoming driver, then that's what happens.
Correct. Correct. That happens.
So we need to understand. That's what I said. We need to see that who's at the power. This is actually
Hmm.
talking about your social styles. Along with that, we need to actually understand the power and the influence where that person's power has, where he is in terms of his power, where he is in terms of his influence. That makes you understand what you need to do next.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you very
I
much.
think there are a lot of question and answer which is going on. And it is going really interesting. What you can do is, Vinod, you can just share your number across in this chat box to everyone. Can you just stop share screen once?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, thank you so much for being participating, and I'm sure it was an interactive session altogether. He will share his number across. That's the number to everyone. Just give me a minute. I'll just copy paste. Yeah, this is the number 9029485780. You can connect him via calls, via email addresses. You can connect him over LinkedIn as well. He'll be in touch with you for all the question and answer that you want. So L&D Global Mumbai, thank you, Vinod, for giving us a wonderful session today here. I'm sure it was an interactive session, and most of the content I also use it because now I am on the what you can say on the top of the pyramid. So sometimes I also, so not top of the pyramid, I can say we are all juggling up in the we are the patty in the burger. So not the top management, not the executive level. So we are in the patty. So
Pranavesh, could you please give his number once again, please?
yeah, it's 9029
9029
48
48
57
57
80.
80. And Pranavesh, unfortunately, I missed the first part of it. Do you think we will be getting a video recording of this?
We will be getting the video recording once this is published in the YouTube channel. So we are in the process to publish this all recordings on the YouTube channel as well. So we will very soon come up with the link and everything. So do not worry about it, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So,
right. And are you coming with the Lockdown 3 series also now?
we are hoping let the Lockdown 2.0 end up, and then we will come up with something good.
Okay, fine.
Sure.
Okay.
So thank you so much, guys. It was a wonderful session with Vinod, L&D Global Mumbai. Thanks again, Vinod. So for a wonderful session. So Vinod, you can also say a thank you to our, and we can just end this meeting out here.
Thanks everyone for joining. I hope the discussions were useful for one and all. And in case if you have any questions, you can just come back to me. Nice.
Vinod, thank you very much. It's been really, really not only nice, but it's been quite an eye-opener, you know. I mean, when I saw the title Social Styles, I said, oh my God, what is this going to be? Is it going to be about personality? Is it going to be about communication? Is it going to be what? But I was in for a very, very pleasant surprise. The topic is so rich. You really put a lot of meat in it. Thank you very much. It was really, really nice and very useful. A great eye-opener for many, at least for me, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. Alvida, we can say thank you, L&D Global Mumbai. Collaborate, co-create, and contribute. Hope to see you again. Stay connected, stay tuned.
Thank you.